Hey Danielle, it's Andy, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Wonderful, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Fantastic. I just thought I'd let you know you're live to the entire audience. So what I'll do briefly is just give some housekeeping rules to those listening, and then we'll get straight into your presentation.
At which point will you turn the presentation privileges over to me?
In about 60 seconds, I'll let you know when we're going to hand it over.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. Well, guys, as you know, it's a SAP Super Summit today, and for those of you who just joined us for Danielle's presentation, the thinking behind the summit was we have thousands of consultants and clients around Europe, and ourselves included, have looked to get to SAP presentations, SAP summits, to hear the best speakers in the world. And being in Europe is quite difficult to travel to these events. So what we've done is brought together what we believe to be 10 of the top speakers in the world on SAP to cover all manner of subjects from SAP. The subjects selected have come from surveying our consultants, from surveying our clients. So the topics you've been listening to, and indeed will be listening to this afternoon, have been selected by yourselves. Now we feel very privileged to have Danielle on the line. For those of you who don't know Danielle's got 20 years industry experience. She's also a best-selling author. So for those of you who might be on Amazon now, have a quick look for Danielle and see if you can get those sales up. She's been a featured speaker at various international conferences. And today the presentation will be very unique. No one else is going anywhere near the subject. It's on query-based reporting. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass the control over to Danielle. And within a few seconds, we should have Danielle's screen. So Danielle, I've passed the controls to you. Perfect. Perfect. So Danielle, and for those listening, the format will be same as before. Danielle will speak for 45-50 minutes. At the end of that time, we'll then be asking relevant questions based on the questions we've received throughout the presentation. And for those who cannot wait, you've got specific questions, do fire them in, and our moderator will get back to you. But until that time, we're going to switch off the microphone and let Danielle work her magic until approximately 3:45 GMT. So Danielle, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for this session. Today we're going to talk about Beyond the Basics, a deep dive into query-based reporting for SAP Human Capital Management. One of the things that I wanted to share right up front is there are so many different options available for reporting in HR and Payroll, and one of the areas that gets very little attention is the use of the query-based tools. One of the popular sessions that I give at conferences is teaching people how to use those tools, including how to turn them on, the configuration and deployment decisions, etc. I'm going to be sharing all of that with you. To start off, I'm going to show you the different options that you have for reporting before doing a deep dive into the query-based reporting. This is my biography. Most importantly, you can connect with me on LinkedIn should you have any additional questions after the presentation. We're going to start and talk about your options for SAP HCM reporting. I put these into three different categories. Top left, we've got the live pre-delivered ones from SAP. These include the things like SAP pre-delivered reports, custom-coded reports that you build in either ABAP or SAP script, the query-based tools, SAP Query, ADhoc Query, the HR information system, and QuickViewer. There are also two data warehouse type solutions in BIW and the new SuccessFactors reporting analytics. In addition to both these options, you always have an option to also do a third-party solution. There's two different types you can do, some that are live real-time inside SAP, and then others that are offline via data extract, things like Microsoft Excel. So let's take a look at the ones that come right out of the box with your SAP system. The very first one of these, the SAP pre-delivered reports. These can be found directly in your easy access menu right here as shown on the screen. Each of the different functional areas in HCM is listed and have a bunch of reports underneath them. For each of these reports, you can actually access additional documentation to tell you how these reports are configured. In most cases, when you have a new report requirement, it's a great idea to go and look and see if it's available within the pre-delivered reports. That way, SAP has done all of the hard work for you and there's nothing new you need to develop. This is especially true with any country-specific regulatory reports. An example in the U.S. would be something like an EEO1. These reports are great for use, but also keep in mind that they're based on how your data was loaded into SAP. So looking at these first couple of samples here, we've got a list of the birthday list, for example. This particular report will show each employee's entry date and calculate how long they've been with the company, and it'll also show their birthday. You have to be sure that when you initially loaded your data into SAP, you put in that load date to correspond with their entry date. Otherwise, everyone is going to have a bad date. So keep that in mind in terms of using the pre-delivered reports based on how you loaded your data. Whenever you have a new report requirement, see if it exists out here in the pre-delivered reports before trying to develop it on your own. Next, we've got custom-coded ABAP reports. This sample screen shows you what the code looks like behind the scenes of one of our SAP reports. Custom-coded reports include any that have been developed by a programmer, where they're actually inserting code to read from all the various database tables. These types of reports are usually following your traditional workbench cycle, which would be the creation in the development client, movement to QA for testing, and an eventual transport to production. I've yet to meet a customer who does not have at least a handful of these different types of reports because the other tools don't satisfy their requirements. It's important to note you need a trained ABAPer in order to do this, especially for the human capital management module, which has a different design than the traditional table structures that are used in many of the other modules. More specifically, things like payroll results actually aren't stored in tables. They're stored in these complicated things called clusters, and you need a trained ABAP programmer to be able to get them. The upside of using custom-coded reports is you can build them to do whatever you want to do. You're not limited to certain restrictions within the tool. Because you're writing all of it in code, you can go get data from multiple modules if you want to. The downside of building things in custom-coded reports is the cost and the development effort. So it becomes an internally expensive design each time you want a report to have a programmer build each one of these. Anytime you want to change to the report, which happens frequently, it has to go through this entire development work cycle again. So although there's a place for them in your reporting arsenal, we try not to create too many reports in ABAP custom code or SAP script. Your next option is the SAP Query. A lot of people who are familiar with HCM reporting are used to using a tool, the ADhoc Query, which is a much more limited view of reporting in HCM. The SAP Query is actually more of a reporting solution designed to be used for repeat reporting. So for SAP Query, for example, you can create reports in basic list format, statistics, or ranked lists. It could actually be used for any application module, not just the human resources module. And this is the tool we're going to take a deep dive on in just a moment. The ADhoc Query was one of the very first tools available for HCM reporting, and it has a bit of a reputation as being a resource hog. It's important to note that SAP advertises this tool as designed for a single-use data lookup and not as a reporting solution. This tool does not allow you to do customization in any sense in terms of adding calculations or modifying the fields or using calculations, the types of things that are available in SAP Query. The ADhoc Query is really designed for a one-time lookup. How many employees do I have in the UK who are over the age of 50, for example? You can use the tool for simple lookups. Accessing the tool is available in this easy access menu here on the left. It is important to note with either of these query tools, the ADhoc Query or the SAP Query, there are a large number of OSS notes related to these tools as having problems that are logged with SAP. If you don't know what an OSS note is, it's when SAP finds a bug in the code of the SAP system. They log a ticket for it called an OSS note, and they share that online on the SAP.com website. At any given time, the ADhoc Query has over 400 open OSS notes. The SAP Query has a few hundred as well. Because the future direction for reporting is not really limited to these query-based tools, we do not see fixes coming through anytime soon for the query-based tools. Another tool developed, delivered with the system is called the HRIF, the menu path to access it is here. This tool is designed to allow you to see your data from the org management module in a structural view. The smaller picture on the bottom left of your screen shows you what an organization structure looks like. It's almost impossible to read because what it does is it tries to auto-fit everything that you're displaying onto a single screen. This is not a popularly used tool. It does not print well, and it's not very user-friendly. I share it in here only so you know that it's available as an option. Most people do not use this solution. QuickViewer. QuickViewer is a little utility that came out probably around version 4.6. What it was designed for is people were complaining about the transaction code SE16. If you know what SE16 is, it allows a user, hopefully an advanced user, the ability to go in and do a direct table read of any different table. It doesn't have any security built in behind it. It's a very dangerous way to access data. Because a lot of customers were asking for access to this transaction code, SAP developed SE16N, which is a transaction code that makes it a little bit more conservative in terms of being able to research and view the data. QuickViewer took this concept and took it one step further. What it does is it allows you to look at table-based data or logical databases, which are those behind-the-scenes databases that include all the information for HCM reporting, and allows you to evaluate that data. The big difference here is you can build security behind the scenes to be used in QuickViewer. And from a user-friendliness perspective, what most people like is, unlike SE16, which will show you only the technical names of the table field, QuickViewer will show you the user-friendly names. So instead of seeing Vorna, you'd actually see the field last name, which makes it easier to understand. This tool can be accessed via transaction code SQVI. Those are the solutions that run live inside your SAP environment. There are also very popular data warehousing solutions, including SAP Business Intelligence, BI, BW, and SuccessFactors Reporting and Analytics. The big misconceptions about BI and BW is that it's running live inside your SAP system. It's important for people to know that BI is a separate data warehouse that includes information that's extracted from your SAP system and loaded into that data warehouse on a regular basis. The reporting options for reporting in BW are far superior to what we have in standard SAP. The challenges for HCM reporting, it's often based on more summary or executive level data. So for example, in BW, a real world example is you could do something like a headcount report. That data would give interesting information to the managers about how many employees are in each organizational unit. What it will not include is transactional level data, which is so important for HR and payroll. Things like how many people clocked in 5 minutes late, or how many people are over the compa ratio for their annual salary. The important distinction here is that SAP Business Warehouse is a great reporting solution for data that's summarized. You can even include data from other modules as well. So if you wanted to look at your HR data in relation to your financial or supply chain data, you could do so. However, it often doesn't address the real-time transactional reporting that you use for HR and payroll. SuccessFactors Reporting and Analytics is one of the newer items available from SAP. I'm very excited about it. It has some very robust reporting items. What this system does is it takes information outside of core SAP, things like from the organizational structure configuration, and it makes it available for you to produce reports outside in SuccessFactors. And I know the picture is a little fuzzy on here, but your reporting options are very grand. You're not limited to simple Excel type spreadsheets. As you can see in those pictures, you can do charts and graphs and very detailed analysis. The items that are fed into SuccessFactors are fed via extractors. So whatever data you'd like to report off of in SuccessFactors, you first have to extract that data from your SAP system. So the same caution goes as it did with BW. Only the data you select to load and the frequency with which you load it would be available to you in SuccessFactors for reporting. In addition to the options that are offered by SAP, you can also do something like a third-party solution. There's two different types you can do. There are some that run live inside SAP and some that run offline, like Microsoft. An example of a third-party solution that runs live inside SAP is called Easy Reporter. It is a separately purchased and installed solution. However, it does run live in SAP, and what it does, it gives you access to report on all the different application areas in HCM, payroll, time, org management, even the data that's buried in the clusters. Easy Reporter is the only SAP certified solution for real-time reporting for each. What a lot of companies will do is they'll take their data outside of SAP and they'll use it in an application like Microsoft Excel or Access. A popular thing that companies do is they create an ABAP program in their SAP system and routinely access that data to populate it in something like the Microsoft Access database. And they do their reporting from there. The big issue here I have is security. We go through such effort to make sure that our security rules inside SAP are locked down so that people can't see certain bits of data. The moment you dump that data into a spreadsheet, you're no longer protected by SAP security. People may be storing that locally on their C drives or hopefully not out on a network drive. So there's definitely security considerations for using a tool like Microsoft Office for your reporting. The other concern is it does require an additional effort. Once that data comes outside of SAP, you would have to manually manipulate that data in that outside Microsoft system for use. There are other third-party solutions on the market. If you ever wanted to know what type of tools are available, and this is not limited to SAP HCM, but there's a website called SAP EcoCup, and what this does is it lists software partners of SAP for each of the different application modules. So if you're interested in learning what reporting tools, what additional reporting tools are available for SAP HCM, you would visit the website listed here and look under Analytics for HCM reporting. Okay, that was at least 10 different options. How do you pick which is the right option for your reporting? It's fair to say every organization is different. However, there are some best practices that I'm happy to share. The two different types of reporting that you're doing in HCM are the transactional-based reporting, which is things like the query tools can do, or the offline reporting, which is what BW and SuccessFactors are designed for. On the following slides, we're going to take a look at each of the different modules in SAP HCM and review which tools are available for use in each area, followed by some recommended best practice suggestions. So this is a list of the application modules in SAP HCM, and keep in mind they rename these at least once a month just to keep us on our toes. So it gives you a general idea. On the left-hand side, we've got what's called core HR and payroll. That would be personal administration, benefits, org management, time and tax, payroll, tax data, financial postings, and even concurrent employment. On the right-hand side, we have what's called talent management data. This is the stuff that's largely related to SuccessFactors and is sometimes referred to as the specialty module. This has to do with competency management, talent assessment, performance management, compensation, learning, recruitment, employee development, and succession management. If you're looking for your reporting strategy for your organization, let's start by looking at your core HR and payroll items. What's available? I took each of those tools that we mentioned before, pre-delivered reports, custom-coded ABAP, the SAP Query, HIS, and QuickViewer. I also added a couple of technical functions that are available in your SAP system. One of them is called the Payroll Recon Report, the Wage Type Reporter, and a transaction code called PCP0. What I've done is I've taken each of the application areas and shown which tools can be used for each one. So for master data reporting, for example, you can use the pre-delivered reports. Custom-coded ABAP can be used for any of these different areas. You can use a query-based tool, which we'll see later in the presentation, or the QuickViewer. As I continue to scroll through each of these different application areas on the left-hand side, you'll notice that different tools would be used for benefits reporting, especially things like the contributions that are made by employees, which is something that is stored in the payroll clusters. Org management, again, can be used a different solution, including that HIS, to do the reporting from there. Time and attendance, two different tools to be used for time and attendance. payroll data, you can use these 3 tools, tax data, financial posting, concurrent employment. At the end of the day, you can see that there are multiple solutions to address the core HR and payroll reporting. This is the biggest challenge for most organizations in the sense that there is no one-size-fits-all for everything in SAP HR and payroll. However, for just the core HR and payroll data, not including any of the talent management data, I recommend that solution for using one solution. An example of a third-party solution would be something like Easy Reporter. The other areas inside SAP, competency management, talent management, comp, e-learning, recruitment, this data is available in SuccessFactors for reporting. The reporting, again, is very robust for these particular items and includes charts and graphs and really forward-thinking best practices with regard to employee evaluation. For all the areas that fall under the talent management umbrella, SuccessFactors is the desired way to do the reporting. If you're looking for one thing to solve all of your problems, there is not one tool that does everything. So you've got talent management, everything can be done in SuccessFactors. You can use a third-party tool to use everything in core HR. Here on this screen, I've listed all the talent management and the core HR. Often I get the question, doesn't BI/BW do all of this? Keep in mind, BI/BW does not include the information that's inside SuccessFactors. It can likely be propagated to exist there, but it's not common practice currently. BI/BW still does not address the transactional level data in core HR and payroll. So you do have those 2 solutions. With all of that in consideration, from the diagrams, it's easy to see SAP does not offer you a single tool to use for your transactional reporting for all those different application modules. You should use a third-party solution. Easy Reporter is the only SAP certified one that offers that. For talent management, SAP SuccessFactors Reporting and Analytics is designed to get at all of the key areas related to talent management. If you would take a deeper dive into each of the different items that we talked about, I have included here where you can learn more information about each one of these. The reason for picking SAP Query as our point of concentration for this particular session is, unlike training for BI/BW or custom-coded reports, SAP doesn't really offer a lot of information related to the query-based tools. In the next few slides, I'm going to show you everything you need to know in order to use the query-based tools should you want to. So with the query-based tools, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to configure them, which is the one-time turning the tools on for use, which takes less than 5 minutes to do. We'll walk through how you can use SAP Query to report in both the basic and the advanced screens, guidance on the administrative decisions you need to take into consideration before you deploy the tool at your company, some best practice guidelines, and some tips and tricks, including how to customize your InfoSet to include things like custom Infotypes. So here we go. We're going to go through how to turn on the query tools for use. The configuration of the SAP Query takes less than 5 minutes to do, and it actually only has 3 steps. Step 1 is you create a data source that you're going to use to be available in the reporting tool. Step 2 is you create some groups of users who are going to access the tool. And step 3 is you assign the 2 of them together. Let's take a look. These screens are a little detailed, but I wanted them to be available to you when you get back to your own organization to follow them through step by step, and you can have your configuration completed. First step is to create the InfoSets, the data source. To do so, you'd be going to transaction code SQ02. You'd select the appropriate environment, followed by the Choose button. Behind the scenes, it'll ask you to give a name for your InfoSet. I just called mine the SAP Super Summit sample. InfoSets are basically just data sources behind the scenes of big groups of data. As you know, you can use something like an SE16 to look at one table at a time. What an InfoSet is a large group of tables already related together from which you could simply pick and choose the fields that you're interested in. So all I did was give it a name followed by the Create button. And I see a screen like this. Your InfoSets can be based on many different data sources. Best practice dictates that you use what SAP calls the logical database. There are at least 4 of these delivered for SAP HCM, the most popular of which is called PNPCE, which has to do with all the personal administration data and is certified for concurrent employment. If you were ever curious how many other application databases are available, simply you would hit that drop-down box and you would see all the logical databases delivered by SAP for all of the different application modules in SAP, including the 4 made for human capital management. All I did was give the name, pick the logical database, followed by the check mark. For HCM reporting, what it'll do is it'll bring up a list of all of the Infotypes related to master data management. This is a one-time setup. I go through and I use the check mark to indicate which Infotypes I want to be available in my data source for reporting. Many companies will just go through and select them all, but it's nice to know you can deselect ones that are not in use at your organization. Once you've gone through and selected all the Infotypes that you like, you hit start, and what you would see is a technical screen that looks like this. The screen is often scary to regular transactional users because it's kind of technical in nature. The good news is all it does is it actually makes a list of all of your Infotypes, and the only things you're required to do on this screen are to hit the Save button and the Generate button, which I have circled here. Because you didn't make any changes and you followed the standard steps, your InfoSet is created and ready for use. Step 1 was to create a data source. Step 2 is to create groups of users. These groups do not have much to do with security. It's more along the lines of proper file keeping. So if I'm in a group of human resources users, I'm only going to want to see the reports available for human resources. I'm going to create a group for human resources that'll list only their reports. The benefits department or the retirement department, they want to have their own groups to see only their reports. To create query groups, you follow the simple steps listed here, give it a name, and what you'll do is type in the actual user ID of each person that you want to be a member of that group. So I'm a member of the sample HR user group, however, I could be also a member of several different groups as well. Again, it has less to do with security and more to do with what you'll see when you log into the query tool to see the reports you're interested in. The last step would be to, when we hit the back button, and it says it here on step number 8, there's a button that says click Assign InfoSet. Your final step is to assign what you built in step 1 to what you built in step 2, and you're done. The actual configuration takes less than 5 minutes to do, and it is quite easy to follow. Now that you've done that one-time configuration, you're ready to use a tool like the SAP Query for reporting, and here's how. Accessing the SAP Query can be accessed from the Easy Access menu shown on that initial screen when we introduced the tool, or you can jump directly to it using the transaction code SQ01. All you're required to do is give a name for your query followed by the Create button. The SAP Query, unlike the ad hoc query, is designed in multiple screens. If you've ever worked with the ad hoc query, you'd know that everything is broken down onto a single screen. With the SAP Query, there's actually 14 different screens that you can work with to customize your report. By no means do you have to use all of them, but it's nice to know all of that advanced functionality is in there. All the different screens can be navigated using those arrows on the top left, what's circled on your screen here. The only thing required on this particular screen is to give your report a title and then hit that forward arrow to move to the next screen. The next screen will list all of your Infotypes that you selected in your data source. So when you initially turned the tool on, you picked which Infotypes would be available. This will show you a list of those Infotypes here. From here, whoever's creating the report simply needs to put a check mark next to any of the Infotypes that they'd like to include fields from on their report. I picked Infotype 1, 2, and 8, but those navigational arrows down there at the bottom of the screen can be used for additional selections. Once you hit the third arrow on toolbar, what it does is it opens up each one of those Infotypes and shows a list of all the fields on each Infotype in the order in which they appear on the screen when you're viewing it. So on this sample, I opened up Infotype 1 and I see the fields from Infotype 1, employee group, subgroup, org key, etc. From here, I simply select the fields that I'd like to include in my report. I picked the text employee group and the text position field. From here, I hit the forward button. This next screen is optional, but it'll show you a list of all the fields that you picked. So I picked employee group, position description, last name, first name, year of birth, annual salary, last day their salary was changed. By simply making a check mark next to any one of these fields, I can have this field show up when I run the report on the report selection screen to do further classifications. I'm going to pick the year of birth field, and I'll show you where this comes through in a moment. The SAP query you can use to create 3 different types of reports: basic list reports, statistic lists, or ranked lists. Excuse me. Basic lists are the most popular. Statistic lists are often used in financial reporting, and ranked lists will actually put things in order. From an HR perspective, ranked lists are usually only used when you're talking about determining things like length of service, who has the greatest amount of service in the company, and I'll rank those people in order. The most popular option is basic list and select box. This tool is so easy to use. What it does is it lists each of the fields on the left-hand side that I wanted in my report, and then I would simply fill out the boxes next to it. Line allows me to say which line I want each of these fields to appear on. If we think of a traditional report, everything appears on line 1 across the top of the page, and you could specify the order in the sequence column. Most of your reports, everything will always be on line 1, except if you're doing something like address labels, where you put the first name and last name on line 1, the street address on line 2, city, state, zip, postal code, etc. on line 4. In addition to doing the line and the sequence, you can also indicate that you'd like to sort the fields. For any numeric fields, you can indicate that you'd like to include a total, and you can also specify a counter on any field. This is actually how you design the report. Once your report is designed, you can hit the execute button. When you run any report inside SAP, the first thing that you see is a selection screen, which gives you the option to further classify which group of employees you want to see. So I created a list of employees, but on this screen, I'm going to be able to say I want to see this data as of today for a particular personnel area or a particular type of employee, active only, for example. If you added any fields on that earlier screen, that year of birth, for example, I mentioned you can add additional fields to show up on your selection screen. You can add those here as well. I'm just going to put in some criteria of the group I want to see, followed by the execute button to see the report output. Report output runs live inside SAP and is displayed in the standard SAP ALV list viewer. That toolbar you see at the top of the screen is the same one that you'd see for any SAP report. This sample report includes each of the fields that I picked from all the different info types in the order in which I specified. Those are the basic screens of the SAP query. They're the most popularly used ones by most customers. However, it is nice to know that there are a bunch of advanced screens should you want to use them. If you want to see any of the advanced screens, you would simply hit the forward arrow from that previous screen, and you'll continue to see the advanced screens. In the interest of time, I took a picture of each of the advanced screens and showed a before and after of what these changes can do to your reports. The first of the advanced screens allows you to, we're starting here on the regular screen that we designed our report. If you indicated any type of sort, as I did here on year of birth, and then hit the forward arrow, the first advanced screen would allow me to say that I wanted to change that sort to be descending order, show text before the output, and show a total for each one. It's really for sorting and subtotaling. Taking my report before and after and seeing in sorting and subtotaling is shown here on the screen. Next advanced screen simply allows you to change the text that's output at the subtotal level. At the top of the screen will show you the standard SAP text. For example, it would say year of birth before showing the total year of birth. If you wanted to vary that text, you could do so on this next screen. Here's a real-world example of that. The next screen allows you to change the color of the list, remove headers and footers, insert blank lines or pages. If anyone's using the SAP Query tool to create interface files, those would be positional-based files that you provide to vendors, for example, where the first 40 characters are the person's last name, and then the next field is another, the next few characters are another field. The options on this screen allow you to begin to do that by hiding the headers and footers. Some samples of change the colors and removing the headers and footer are shown here. The next screen actually has some fun options on it, and I got to the screen by hitting the forward arrow. It looks a lot like the main design screen. What it lists all the fields that are available in my report. What it'll do is it'll show me the standard length of each field delivered from SAP. So the first name field, for example, is 40 characters. This gives me the option to change the width of any of those fields to be smaller. Doesn't make sense to do so on currency-based fields or dates, but it can be used for the other fields. The popular scenario in which you would do this is, again, in the creation of something like an interface file. The next column, position, allows you to specify in which position in your report output you want each field to start. In my example, I just said I didn't want the output to start until the 25th character in. You've got unit options in terms of how you display the currency, if it's in the field itself, if it's in the next column, it's hidden altogether. That format column allows you to pick the color of any individual line. Template we'll talk about in a moment. And that last option there allows you to hide zero values, so you don't see 0.00 in currency fields. It'll also hide leading zeros. Before and after, you can see that my report now doesn't start until 25 characters in. I shrunk the first name field to now only be 10 characters long, for example. And I changed the color of some of the fields. On the screen, there was a mark box for what's called a template. I marked that I wanted to create a template for the position field. Any field that you indicate with the check mark that you'd want to create a template for allows you to vary the text that's output before the actual SAP output. So behind the scenes, it's going to show me my field for position, and I just inserted the text my title is, and what it'll do is it'll actually output that. A more realistic scenario would be for the creation of an extract file where you have to pre-fill it with your company code, for example, or a fixed value of X's and Y's. Next screen, the advanced screen allows you to do custom headers and footers, including the shortcuts that I have listed on this screen. Of seeing those custom headers and footers here on displayed here. Last option is for graphics. One of the big challenges with reporting in standard SAP is the inability for the graphics to look as good as they traditionally do in something like a Microsoft Excel or even in SuccessFactors. The query-based tool does have a graphic option, but it's important to note that it's not quite as pretty as others. I took the report that I just run and limited the data only to the employee's name, their title, and their annual salary, and I produced this pie chart. That is how you would turn on the SAP Query tool and how you could use it at your own organization. A couple of comments to share with you before you just dive in and start using the solution. There are some administrative decisions that you should make as an organization before you just turn on the tool. Things like who can create the report, what's your report distribution strategy, what's the client transport strategy, etc. It's on the slide and I'm going to share with you best practice. First option is who can create reports. As I mentioned, the query-based tool is very easy to use. It doesn't mean that you can let everybody use it. The biggest guidelines I give regarding the query-based tools is every organization is different. Often they'll have a designated department that's responsible for reporting. If you have a designated department responsible for reporting, then giving them access to the SAP query is a great way to do it. You can also allow other users to access the reports. There is no one-size-fits-all. It depends on your organization. I do recommend having a designated group of people who are responsible for the report creation who follow detailed guidelines. So, for example, they use the same criteria to determine what's an active employee, for example, and there are several different ways you can determine that. What is your report distribution strategy? Now, this is true regardless of what tool you're using. How are you going to make those reports available to your users? You can make any of the reports discussed here available to your users via standard portal channels, things like MSS or ESS. You can also add them as shortcuts to your easy access menu or assign them to transaction codes. Some you can even schedule as jobs to be automatically delivered, and I share some code on how to do that as well. Again, no best practice except to say that if you reduce the complexity in which people have to follow rules to get to the reports, the more apt they'll be to access them. Be consistent in your report distribution strategy. Application area. This is one of those technical settings during the one-time setup. There are two different areas in which you can create queries in your SAP environment. One's called global, which means any query you create will be available to all of the clients on that server. So if you've got a server with a dev client, a QA client, and a production client, if you build a report in the global area, it'll automatically be available on all three. The standard area is client-specific. You can only, when you create a report, it's only going to exist. My opinion on this one is to stay limited to the standard application area, create the reports in the client in which you're interested in working on them. They could be easily uploaded and downloaded between the clients without transports. But my advice is SAP delivers a lot of their reports via the global application area, and I consider that territory sacred. I leave the SAP delivered reports in there, and I build ours in the standard application area. Client transport strategy, a big question always comes through is, do you allow users to use these tools in production? All the reporting tools, whether they're the ad hoc query, the SAP query, or even the pre-delivered reports that come right out of the box, all have the risk associated with them that an untrained user can run a report and yield way too much information. It's not limited to the query-based tools. But best practice does dictate that the actual development, that one time of turning on your data source, should be done in your development environment, move to QA, and move to production. That's a real technical object that's done in the beginning and should be done by a technical resource in your development client. What ultimately happens is the moment you've created an InfoSet, you're going to want to add additional things to it. The InfoSets are limited to include things like manager name or previous title or previous salary, for example. You don't need an ABAP programmer to go in and add those. So that has to exist in the development client. However, the other step where you created those query groups, that should be done live in your production environment because usually only the users actually only exist in the production environment. The creation of reports should always happen live in your production environment as well. This is just a friendly reminder that that InfoSet, that one-time step that we went through, should be done by a technical person. And even though it was easy to turn on, we don't recommend that you do so. You leave that step to a technical person. When we got to the screen where we went in and picked what our data source was going to be, I wanted to point out there are other ways that you can build data sources. You can do it based on a direct read of a table or via a program. The most important thing to point out to you is best practice recommends that you use an SAP delivered logical database because that has all the security pre-built. So if I built a query and I'm only able to see employees in the UK, I can run that report and only see the employees in the UK. If another user who has all system access runs that same report, they'll be able to see all employees. Because a logical database is used, standard SAP security is in effect. If you use a different data source, that's no longer. I'm not going to talk too much to this one, but it's nice to share some code with you that I've accumulated over the years. A lot of times people ask if I wanted to create a report and automatically have it sent to somebody's inbox, how would I do so? I've included those here that you can leverage to do so at your own organization. It's possible for any SAP report or program, including an SAP query. If you ever wanted to audit who's running reports and the last time they were run, you could follow the steps listed here for any of the servers you want to audit. If you wanted to move queries between different clients, there's this concept called upload-download, and I've included a link here on where you can find an article that'll tell you more about uploading and downloading so you don't have to use the transport. You can also create statistics or ranked lists with SAP Query. Again, these are more popular for things like financial reporting, but it's nice to know there are additional options than the ones that I've shown here. What's kind of neat is you can also create calculations using SAP Query. You really don't have to know too much about ABAP to do so. You follow some simple steps right in one of those main screens that we looked at. This sample is adding a field that I called pay cut that just took the annual salary and minus $100. You can do this type of calculations live in your SAP Query. You can even use if and scenarios to do the calculations. So you could say if the cost center equals 1, 2, 3, 4, and show what a 4% raise would look like. SAP Query offers a copy feature. You can take any of the reports built by someone else, make a copy, and make changes to make it your own. You can also lock down your queries so no one can make changes to them. This is a little best practice tip. If you went back to your desk and you started creating reports with SAP Query, one of the first things you'll learn is the moment you create a report, somebody will come back and ask you to add additional fields to it. If you order your fields on your report as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you will always have to reorder them whenever you add in a new field. However, if you use increments, as I've done here, 5, 10, 15, 18, it makes it a lot easier to go back after the fact and insert additional fields. You can also use any of these symbols or icons. Symbols are the black and white ones, and icons are the color pictures in your reports. It's probably most compelling when you use something to denote certain records, for example. There's that red flag that's shown on the left-hand side of the screen. If I was creating a report to show people who are over the range for their annual salary, for example, I would flag those records to include that flag. The biggest limitation of query-based reporting is your inability to get at the cluster-based table. So query reporting is designed to just get at basic table data or Infotype data. It was one of the big challenges that came out of the user groups when they complained to SAP that they wanted to have access to payroll results. What SAP did was deliver a handful of Infotypes that could be populated with your payroll results data, therefore making it available for reporting within the query-based tools. This is a sample of some of the tools that are available. I'd like to make a point of pointing out that this is not a popular way to do it. Although when a payroll is run, it'll copy some of the data based on which wage types you've selected to be evaluated back to the Infotypes. It doesn't take into consideration things like retro pay, etc. I've yet to see a company successfully deploy the configuration of the payroll result Infotypes. But if you want to learn more, I've included the menu path here. This is some of the technical details behind the scenes for payroll result reporting for later reference. Once you create reports, you'll realize that it's very easy to do, and before you know it, you'll have a few hundred out there. Get started off on the right foot by using a naming convention for any object that you create. Because reports aren't custom objects, you don't have to name them with a Z, but you should name them with some sort of naming convention. I propose using the user's initials, so I included mine, DLS, followed by an underscore, and then the report name. When you access the report tool, it will actually sort all of the reports in the name by the user. It makes it easy for you to distinguish which reports are yours. You can use the query-based tools to report off of the org management component, but only if you're familiar with how evaluation paths work and how the objects are related to each other. So the example that I used in my report is I used a data source called PNPCE, which was for personal administration reporting. You can also use the logical database PCH, which allows you to report off of organizational information. When you do so, the selection screen, when you run the report, will look like this screen shown here. Familiarity with org management and how it works is the key to getting the right data for these reports. I promised to share some code about how you wanted to go to a data source and make changes to it. I've included the steps on how to do so here. They're pretty detailed. In your custom tables or reference to other areas, you could do so. If you wanted to add custom Infotypes to your data source, I've included a link to an article that shows you how you can do that as well. One big heads up before you use the tool for the first time, when you navigate to the tool, it's going to look completely different than what I've shown you here. The standard setting for SAP, the default, is to show it in a graphical view, which is not very intuitive or user-friendly. The settings to turn it off only have to be done one time in each client, and they're listed here. So before getting started, be sure to follow the menu path the tool correctly. I hope that I've given you a good understanding of how to use the query-based tools at your organization, including some tips and tricks on how to improve their use and performance at your organization. I'm happy to take any questions.
Hey there, how you doing?
Good.
Can you hear me, Danielle?
Yeah.
Danielle, thank you so much for that presentation. That was very, very detailed, and I can tell by the questions that there's a lot of understanding in terms of the level you pitched that. We've got about 7-8 minutes left. So what I will do, with your permission, is I'll ask one of the questions we've been asking all day, because it seems relevant to the broad spectrum of attendees, which is how do you see the next 12 months in terms of reporting? But I'll also pick out one of the more low-level questions. You bear with me 1 second. The feedback is great, by the way. Well, excellent, thank you. Where can I get Danielle's books from the presentations? As you know, the presentations will follow, but Danielle, feel free to plug your books in a second. We've got a number of questions here. Report Painter, GRR1, how do you select fields from several various tables? Is that one for you, Danielle?
I'm happy to address that one. Report Painter is more popularly used for financial reporting. It's used less and less as we move towards a BW environment. Report Painter is not really designed for use in HCM reporting, so I don't have the select fields answer for you because it's not popularly used for HR. Okay,
thank you for that, Danielle. Well, we've got probably 5 minutes to wrap up. As I say, if you could just cover where you think the next 12 months we'll be moving in terms of reporting, and we have been asked by a few people now for details of your book, so please do feel free to advise where we can purchase it.
Okay, well, the next 12 months is going to be very interesting. I enjoyed sitting through Sven's presentation, and the movement of information to the cloud is definitely the future direction for SAP. The important consideration to keep in mind is what data is going to be available in the cloud and what data actually stays and remains inside SAP. That same bit of transactional data for the HR and Payroll core reporting is not planned to be part of the cloud, at least initially. The next 12 months, I think the focus is going to be getting all of that talent management related data to a SuccessFactors system for more detailed reporting, move that into the cloud and make it more accessible to users. Beyond that, I would think the next step for SAP would be to address that gap where the real-time transactional data is not available in the port-based technology. Oh, and I'll plug the book if you want. My email address is shared, I think. Next screen, you're welcome to contact me. I'm happy to share any information without you having to go and buy the book. But if you wanted to, it would just be searching my name on somewhere like an Amazon.
Danielle, thank you so much for that. As I said to those who've asked, we'll be sending out, with permission of the speakers and Danielle, either the presentation or extracts from the presentation. The replay will also follow in some format in the near future. So on that, with 5 minutes towards the hour, Danielle, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Thank you for an excellent presentation, a very detailed presentation. And as I say, for the feedback from the attendees online, it's been very well received. So thank you, Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure, absolutely.